There were two wine glasses on the table when I returned. Only one had red lipstick on the rim. And the waiter? He was confused. "Your wife said you stepped out for a phone call," he said, glancing around. "She left in a hurry, but the gentleman who was with her said he'd take care of the rest." Gentleman? I hadn't been gone more than 4 minutes. I stood there, holding the receipt in one hand, still warm from the payment terminal. The maitre d' gave me a polite nod, assuming I'd rejoin whoever I was with. But there was no one left to rejoin. Only two wine glasses, one still full, one half empty. Her chair was slightly pushed back, her napkin folded neatly on top of the plate, like she'd planned her exit. I sat down. I don't know why. I just sat. Maybe I hoped she'd return. Maybe I needed to understand how a woman can smile across a candlelit table one moment and vanish the next, like a magic trick without applause. But the lipstick, that shade wasn't hers. Piper wore new tones. Always had. She said red made her look too intense. The print on the glass wasn't just color. It was shape, fuller than hers. And there were two fingerprints on the base of the glass. Not hers either. She never held it that way. I looked around the restaurant. Nothing suspicious. No one staring. No empty plates being cleared from a nearby table that might have matched hers. Then I noticed her phone. Left behind. Unlocked. Placed carefully beneath her linen napkin. It buzzed. Once. Then again. Same number. No name. I should have left it alone. I should have walked out, gone home, and let the mystery remain intact. But that's not what I did. I tapped the screen. A message preview lit up. Room 618. He's still clueless. I didn't blink. Didn't breathe. I just stood, numb, and followed the worst part of my instincts, the one that needed to know. By the time I reached the elevator, everything had already changed. But I didn't know that yet. Not until the door opened, and I saw him. And what was in his hand? I didn't plan to press the button. I didn't plan to follow anything. But when the elevator doors opened and I saw him step out, tall, athletic, expensive jacket still half-zipped, I just froze. He wasn't looking around. He wasn't nervous. He walked past me like I didn't exist, and for a second, I truly felt invisible. But what chilled me wasn't his face. It was what he was holding. Her scarf. That ivory silk scarf I gave her 2 Christmases ago. The one with the little stitched initials in the corner. VH for Vernon and her. She never wore it anymore. Said it felt too delicate. But there it was, hanging from his hand like some casual afterthought. He tossed it over his shoulder as he exited into the lobby, checking his phone as if no one in the world could possibly be watching. He didn't see me. Or if he did, he didn't care. The elevator doors started to close. I stepped in at the last second, barely aware of my legs moving. The mirrored walls of the elevator reflected back a version of me I barely recognized. I looked drained, like someone halfway through the worst dream of their life. But I wasn't dreaming, and I wasn't halfway through. I was just getting started. When I reached the 6th floor, everything was quiet. Too quiet. No footsteps, no voices, no hotel staff wheeling carts of fresh towels or apologizing for the ice machine. Just a narrow hallway with gold-trimmed doors and a single flickering light above room 612. And then came the sound. Laughter. Muffled, female, and undeniably hers. It wasn't just laughter. It was her laughter, that specific pitch she used when she felt powerful. The one I hadn't heard in months, not directed at me. It rolled under the crack of the door like perfume, and for a split second, I forgot to breathe. I didn't knock. I didn't even move. I stood there, maybe 30 seconds, maybe 5 minutes, trying to piece together the version of my life that led to this hallway. This number. This moment. Then I saw it. The room service tray outside her door. 2 empty champagne flutes. A plate with a half-eaten slice of chocolate cake. Her favorite. Only, she hated champagne. Always said it gave her headaches. I used to bring her Moscato instead, every time. Even when we traveled. Even at weddings. I guess champagne tasted better when someone else was paying. I wanted to open the door. I wanted to kick it. Scream. Collapse. But instead, I turned around and walked straight back to the elevator like a ghost retracing his last steps. I didn't want them to hear me breathe. I didn't want them to know I existed anymore. But fate had other plans. The moment I stepped into the elevator, the doors began to close, and from the hallway, I heard the sound of a door opening. Her voice followed. "Wait, you forgot your..." I pressed the button for the lobby. The door slid shut before she finished the sentence. I didn't look back, but my heart did. Every piece of it. The next morning, I didn't say anything. She came home just before sunrise, hair a mess, jacket inside out, still trying to play the role of someone innocent. She tossed her shoes in the hallway like she was returning from a late shift at work, not from someone else's hotel room. She didn't notice me sitting on a couch in the dark, barely breathing. Or maybe she did. Maybe she just didn't care. Her excuse came before I could ask for it. "Sorry I didn't text." Rachel had a breakdown. I stayed with her at that overpriced spa place she likes. No service in the rooms. You know how it is. She was good. Too good. She walked past me and kissed me on the top of my head. I flinched. I don't think she noticed. Or maybe that was part of the game, acting like everything was perfectly normal while I was silently disintegrating inside my own skin. I didn't ask who Rachel was. We don't have a Rachel in our lives. I stayed home from work, called in sick, not because I was sick, but because I couldn't remember how to speak like a normal person. I just stared at my hands for what felt like hours. They didn't look like hands that deserved betrayal. They looked like the same hands that buttoned her wedding dress, held her through panic attacks, fixed her car mirror when she backed into a tree in the snow. I started looking through her things. I know, it's pathetic. But I had to. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't even looking for proof anymore. I just wanted something real, something I could hold, something that made me feel less insane. What I found was worse than anything I imagined. An envelope, tucked behind a row of winter sweaters she never wore anymore. Inside, 3 printed photos. Glossy, close range, taken with intention. One of them was of her in a mirror, wearing nothing but a towel and his jacket. I recognized it immediately. That stupid jacket from the hallway. Designer. Charcoal gray with a subtle red stripe down the zipper. She was smiling in the photo, not forced, not guilty. That kind of smile you give when you're loved, when you feel like you belong. The second photo? A keycard envelope from the hotel, dated with the same night as our anniversary. The third? A selfie of the two of them. In bed. I dropped the photos on the floor. I didn't even feel angry. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped the center out of me and left the shell propped up against our shared life. But here's the part one didn't expect. There was a receipt, too. Not for the room. For a bracelet. Gold. Custom engraved. To M. Your laugh is worth the lies. Always P. My blood ran cold. P. Piper. But who the hell was M? She hadn't mentioned anyone named M. Not even in passing. Not in years. I searched through every message thread in her phone, but the contact list was squeaky clean. No unsaved numbers. No recent deletes. Then I noticed something. One folder in her cloud backup had been renamed. Just a single letter. M. Password protected. I didn't know the password, but I knew that whatever was inside that folder, it was the truth she never intended to tell. And I was going to get it. I didn't want justice. I wanted to finally understand what I had been married to all these years. I didn't sleep again that night. My thoughts kept dragging me back to that folder name, just one letter. M. The way she protected it, hid it, buried it behind sweaters she hadn't worn in 4 winters. It was obvious. This wasn't some fling. This was structured, ongoing, dangerous. I tried every obvious password I could think of. Our anniversary. Her birthday. Her dog's name growing up. Nothing worked. Even tried the name she calls her mother when she's mad. Still nothing. So I gave up for about 6 hours. The next morning, I made coffee just like usual, handed her a mug, and kissed her cheek. I didn't want to, but I needed to play along. She smiled, muttered a "thanks, babe," and scrolled through her phone like it was just another Sunday. That's what chilled me. How easily she fell back into her performance. Like I was the fool in a play I hadn't auditioned for. I kept watching her, waiting, trying to catch a glimpse of something, guilt, hesitation, even the tiniest crack in her routine. But she was smooth, like she'd rehearsed this for years. That afternoon, While she was out grocery shopping, I tried again. This time, I searched the receipts she'd stuffed in her nightstand. She always kept random stuff, ticket stubs, faded receipts, folded notes that said, "Call me when you're alone," in handwriting I didn't recognize. One receipt caught my eye. A bookstore 2 towns over. 3 items purchased. 1 blank leather journal. 1 fountain pen. And a book titled Meaningful Names, A Guide to Letters and Memory. The third one hit me. It was too specific. I looked up the book. Some psychology guy had written it about how people name secret folders or passwords after emotional triggers, especially lovers. There's a whole section online about how people often use reverse initials or musical codes. That's when it hit me. Piper played piano. Her favorite chord? E minor. The letter E. I opened the protected folder on her cloud drive and typed in Emor. It clicked open. No warning. No loading screen. Just silence and a sudden flood of images. I shouldn't have kept looking, but I did. There were dozens of photos. Hotel rooms, parks, restaurant booths. All the same man, same jacket, same smug smile. They weren't hiding. Not really. They were living. Together. Proudly. I saw selfies from cities I'd never been to. Saw gifts I didn't give her, jewelry, a bracelet with her name engraved in script I didn't recognize. He took her to concerts, to a mountaintop in Colorado, to a bed and breakfast she once told me was too far and too expensive. She'd gone there with him. But there was something worse than the photos. Videos. One of them opened automatically. No title, no warning. It started with her holding the camera, facing a mirror in some boutique hotel bathroom. She was laughing. Hair wet. No muck-up. "He still thinks I'm on that wellness retreat," she whispered. "Vernon believes everything I say." Then she turned the phone toward the door. "Say hi, baby," she said sweetly. He stepped into frame and said, "To M, always." They both laughed. It cut out there. That's when I understood something nobody warns you about. Betrayal doesn't explode, it erodes. Quietly, patiently, while you're at work, while you're making dinner, while you're buying flowers. I closed the folder. My hand was shaking so badly I had to sit down. She didn't just cheat on me. She documented it like a vacation, as if my pain was just background noise. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I just sat there in a house filled with things I paid for, realizing none of them meant anything. And I knew then I couldn't keep pretending. But I also knew I couldn't confront her yet, because this went deeper than an affair, and I needed to find out exactly who M really was. 2 nights later, something changed. Piper was in the kitchen, humming to herself while chopping peppers for a dish I knew she didn't even like. She was smiling more. Too much. As if my silence the past few days meant forgiveness, or worse, ignorance. But I wasn't silent because I didn't care. I was silent because I was listening, watching, waiting for her to slip. She never did, so I looked elsewhere. There was one clue I hadn't touched yet. The bracelet from the receipt, the one engraved with the line, "Your laugh is worth a lie's." I hadn't seen it in any photo, not in the videos, not in her jewelry drawer. It was missing, and that made it more important than anything else. She was hiding it, somewhere. I waited until she went to bed, pretended to be asleep, counted her breaths until I was sure she was out. Then I slipped out of the room and went to the basement, the one place she never bothered with. The box was tucked behind old tax folders and Christmas decorations, wrapped in a scarf I didn't recognize. Inside were a few keepsakes, her college ID, an old iPod, a faded photo of her and her sister from some high school beach trip. But under all that, wrapped in tissue paper, was the bracelet. It was heavier than I expected. Real gold, not fake. And inside the box, there was something else, a folded note. No envelope, just a small square of thick, textured paper with gold trim. One sentence, handwritten in perfect, deliberate cursive. "One more trip, and then we decide." M. No name, just the initial again. But this time, the letter meant something different. It wasn't casual. It wasn't flirty. It was final. We decide. They weren't just seeing each other. They were planning something. I didn't know what terrified me more, the fact that she was ready to choose, or the idea that she already had and just hadn't told me yet. The next morning, I followed her. She said she was going to meet a client 2 cities over, some freelance web design job she'd picked up from a referral. I nodded, smiled, packed her a bottle of water for the drive like always. Then I got in my car 10 minutes after she left and tailed her. I thought I'd lose her. She always drove too fast. But not that morning. That morning she drove slow, deliberate, turned off the freeway earlier than expected, took back roads. Eventually, she pulled into a narrow gravel driveway behind an old brick building, some kind of converted warehouse. No signs, no windows facing the road, just one black door partially open. She went inside. I parked across the street and waited. Heart pounding, palms slick. Every second that passed made me feel smaller, weaker. I knew I wasn't built for this. I'm not some bold, vengeful man. I don't punch drywall. I pay my bills early. I fold laundry on Sundays. I use my blinker in empty parking lots. But that morning, something broke in me. I got out of the car, walked up to the building, pulled open the black door like it belonged to me. Inside, there was no office, no client, no computers, just rows of shelves, a couch, a coffee maker, a tall man leaning against the far wall, arms folded, phone in hand. He looked up, smirked. He didn't look surprised. He looked ready. "Vernon, right?" he said. Calm, cool, almost polite. "She said you might show up one day." I couldn't speak. Piper stepped out from behind a curtain a moment later, holding 2 cups of coffee. She saw me, and for the first time since all this began, her expression broke. No fake smile, no excuses, just panic, frozen in place. I looked at the man again. He extended a hand, like we were old friends meeting over lunch. "I'm Marcus," he said. "M, the letter, the bracelet, the password, the message in the cloud." Everything pointed to him, and now he was standing 10 feet away, completely unbothered. Piper set the cups down, slowly. "Vernon," she said softly, as if saying my name gently would undo everything. "I can explain." I didn't answer, because I knew already. Whatever she had to say, it wasn't meant for me. I didn't walk out. I should have. I should have turned around and left them standing there, let the silence burn a hole in their little moment. But I didn't. I stayed. Not because I was strong or angry or even curious, but because my body betrayed me. My feet wouldn't move. My lungs couldn't decide if they wanted air or not. And my mind? It was too busy screaming at me from the inside out. Marcus was still holding out his hand, like this was a job interview or a game. I didn't shake it. Instead, I looked at Piper, really looked at her. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She wasn't used to being caught without a script. I could see it, the panic in her eyes. Not guilt, not shame, panic, like a child who knocked over a vase and didn't know which lie to choose first. Finally, she spoke. "It's not what it looks like." That line, that exact, exhausted, overused cliche. I almost laughed. Almost. She tried again. "I didn't expect you to come. I was going to talk to you. I swear, Vernon. What is this place?" I asked. My voice sounded thin, weak, like it was dragging itself across broken glass to get out. Marcus answered for her. "It's ours," he said. "Well, it was going to be. Eventually." I turned back to her. "Is that true?" She nodded once, like it physically hurt her to admit it. I looked around again. The room was half-furnished. Framed photos leaned against the walls, not hung but ready. 2 matching chairs. A shelf stacked with books I didn't recognize. One of them was open on a table nearby, with 2 mugs beside it. One said M, the other P. They were building a life here. Quietly, carefully. While I was doing taxes and fixing light bulbs, they were out here designing their next chapter. "So, you were just going to disappear?" I asked. "What? Pack a bag one night and send a text?" Piper shook her head quickly. "No, I was going to explain. I just needed the right moment." The right moment, I repeated like it was a foreign phrase I'd never heard before. "What does that look like? Is it before or after you finish decorating your new love nest?" Marcus finally stepped back. "Look, man, I don't want to make this worse. I know this sucks, but it's not like we planned to hurt you. That sentence, it's not like we planned to hurt you, lit something inside me. I turned toward him, slowly. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Not because I didn't have words, but because every possible word felt useless. What could I say to a man who knew exactly who I was, exactly what he was doing, and didn't even flinch? I wasn't angry. I wasn't jealous. I was irrelevant. That's what I finally understood. I was a chapter they'd already skimmed through. And yet, I still couldn't leave. "You're not going to fight?" Marcus asked eventually, his voice almost cautious, like he was surprised I hadn't taken a swing at him yet. "No," I said. "Why would I fight over someone who built a future behind my back?" Piper finally moved closer, slowly, cautiously. "Vernon, I didn't mean to fall in love with him. I didn't go looking for this. I tried to push it away, but we kept running into each other. And you stopped seeing me. That part hurt more than it should have. Maybe I did," I admitted quietly. "Maybe I got tired. Maybe I thought comfort was enough. But you didn't say a word, Piper. You built a second life instead of fixing the first." The silence that followed was deafening. She looked down. Marcus sighed. I stepped back, toward the door. Neither of them stopped me. And for some reason, that cut the deepest. I made it to my car, sat inside for 10 minutes before starting the engine. My hands were gripping the wheel like it might float away if I let go. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even shake. I just sat there, replaying it all. The dinner, the lipstick, the bracelet, the cloud folder, room 618. And now this. I drove home in silence. Our house looked the same. Same porch light. Same welcome mat she picked out 2 years ago. But when I stepped inside, it no longer felt like mine. And that's when it hit me. She'd already left. She was just kind enough to let me discover it slowly. The hardest part wasn't catching them, or hearing the words, or seeing the place they were building together like it was some little secret garden where I was never invited. The hardest part was what came after. The nothing. I thought there'd be some grand fallout, some screaming match, some suitcase thrown out the door, a dramatic speech that ended with car keys on the kitchen counter and one final slam of the front door. But it didn't happen like that. She came home that night as if nothing had changed. I stayed in the guest room. She didn't knock. The next morning, she made toast, ate quietly, checked her phone, and left. She didn't ask where I was going. I didn't ask where she had been. We became shadows, two people orbiting the same space without colliding. No questions, no questions, no apologies, just routine. I still made the coffee, out of habit, still turned off the porch light at night, still folded the laundry, hers too, every sock, every sleeve, as if pretending helped delay the collapse. But inside, I was rotting. The worst thing betrayal does isn't the pain, it's the erasure. You start doubting everything you ever meant to someone. You question every memory, every "I love you," every glance, every touch. Was it real? Or just choreography? I checked the cloud folder again 2 nights later. She hadn't deleted it. Maybe she forgot. Or maybe she didn't care. I scrolled through the images again like some desperate archaeologist, trying to find signs of the moment she stopped loving me. Her eyes told me more than her mouth ever had. There was one video I hadn't opened yet. I shouldn't have. It was a recording of her sitting alone in their place, writing something by hand. No makeup, hair up, sweater I bought her last Christmas. She looked calm. She didn't know she was being filmed. Marcus was in the background, quietly adjusting the camera angle, like he'd done it before. She looked up at one point and said, "He's going to hate me." And I don't blame him. But I can't do this anymore. I feel like I've been sleepwalking for years. I don't even know who I am around Vernon anymore. She paused, then added, "He doesn't make me feel anything." I paused the video there. That sentence kept repeating in my head for hours, like it was carved into the inside of my skull. He doesn't make me feel anything. Not sadness, not hate, not joy, just nothing. Like I was a placeholder for a life she didn't want to live anymore. For the first time since this all began, I walked into our bedroom and opened her closet. Half her clothes were gone. The good ones. The dresses she used to say were too pretty to wear for just errands. The ones she wore for him. The silence of that space was louder than any fight we could have had. That night, she came home late again. Didn't speak. Walked past me. Went to bed. I stood in the hallway, looking at the shut door for a long time. Not because I wanted her back. Not even because I needed answers. But because I didn't know who I was without her anymore. I'd built my world around someone who had quietly stepped out of it, months ago, without closing the door. And I was still standing there, holding it open. It happened on a Tuesday. The house was quiet. Her side of the closet empty. Her toothbrush gone. The necklace I bought her, left behind on the bathroom counter. No note. No final words. Just a suitcase-shaped absence and the smell of her shampoo lingering in the hallway. But for some reason, it didn't crush me the way I expected. Because this time, I didn't hold on. This time, I let her go. Not with bitterness, but with something that took me months to rediscover. Grace. I made myself a cup of tea. Not coffee, tea. Something new. Something warm. I sat by the window where sunlight touched the floor just right and opened the blinds that had been shut for weeks. Outside, kids were riding bikes. A neighbor was mowing his lawn crooked again. The world hadn't paused for my pain. It never did, and maybe that was a gift. Later that evening, I found an old box in the attic. Inside were photos I hadn't seen in years. My college trip to Oregon, my dad helping me paint the first apartment, a letter from my brother I never replied to. I spent hours going through them, remembering the pieces of myself that existed before I became someone's husband and, eventually, someone else's memory. I smiled, really smiled. Not the polite kind. The real kind, the kind that starts somewhere behind your ribs and climbs out naturally. That night, I wrote something. Not a letter, not a journal entry, just a sentence on a sticky note that I placed on the fridge. You're still here, and that means everything is still possible. It wasn't profound, but it was mine. The next morning, I opened the front door and went for a walk. No destination, just movement, just breath. The sky was clear, the kind of blue that looks infinite if you stare too long. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel forgotten. I felt free. And you know what? That's more than enough.